Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from breakingnews.com in Honolulu together with Itobu News. And it's a beautiful day here in Honolulu. You see me here at the Ala Moana Shopping Center, what is the largest shopping center in the South Pacific. And we're in the United States today, have a holiday. It's Memorial Day. And so tourism is booming here in Hawaii. Every hotel room is sold out. And you can see the mall is quite busy today. But Peter, how's everything in College Station, Texas?
Well, of course, it's a holiday here also. It's nice and warm. It's in the mid 90s, which is about 35 degrees Celsius. We've been very lucky. It has not been very humid. It's been warm, but somewhat dry, though it has been very windy. And so that's it kind of feels like we are Middle Eastern Khamsin, hot winds coming from someplace, but no sandstorms. So that's a good part of it. And of course, the heat reminds me of the fact that much of the central part of the United States is already on summer vacation. Some of the other parts of the United States are getting ready for summer vacation. And that's also true in the Middle East. That's true in Europe. That's true in a lot of parts of the world. And when summer vacations from school starts, that means families start thinking about travel. So really, this is the beginning of the hot travel season, both literally hot and economically hot. And this year, I would say travel is really booming. Prices are expensive, but people still are traveling more than ever. Of course, today there was a big problem in the United States. Over 7,000 flights are going to be delayed over this weekend or canceled. And the number one airline that's been having problems is Delta, but United and American are not far behind. And that means lots of travelers have been put into tremendous inconvenience because all of a sudden they're at airports and they can't go anyplace.
And it's not only that, Peter. Once they get to places like here where I am, you see help wanted signs everywhere. Restaurants don't have enough waiters. You go to a cash register in a department store and you have to wait for half an hour before anyone can serve you and take your money. So there are big shortages. Why do you think we have these shortages after just getting out of COVID?
Well, I think we have two reasons. One is, of course, COVID. We really have three reasons. One is COVID, and some people just stop wanting to work. One reason is the fact that the government gave out so much money that a lot of people are preferring to just stay at home. Why work when you can make almost as much money from some of the government handouts? And welfare is up in the United States. And you know what? If you're making a minimum wage job, and why work if you can do just as well on welfare? So we're seeing also large numbers of people are, because of the tax structure that has been put into place, it a lot of times doesn't pay to work. For example, a lot of mothers have figured out it is cheaper to stay at home with their children, not put their kids into daycare center, and not pay for two-income family, and you're actually making money. But what does that mean? There's nobody to serve. There's nobody at the cash register because the mothers are refusing to go to work.
Yeah, I know, and that is a problem, of course, not only in the United States, it's a problem all over the world, specifically also in the European Union. There are just simply not enough workers in the service industry, and that's really an important industry for tourism to function.
And again, the European Union has a very not well thought through tax policy. And a lot of my European friends have come to the conclusion you actually make money by not working. In Switzerland, for example, it will cost you a lot of money to go off welfare, and you cannot earn as much money and pay taxes as you can by just being on welfare. So people have stopped working. Now, that's really problematic because governments don't produce anything. All governments do is transfer money, and then governments say, you know what, we need more taxes to pay for the more problems, and the more taxes, the less people want to work, and you're just in a negative cycle. The last time we saw this was in the 1920s. This was especially true of the Weimar Republic in Germany, and we're not there. I don't want to in any way exaggerate, but we're moving closer and closer to a Weimar Republic. money being worth less, taxes being raised, people stopping to work, and people moving to welfare. And eventually that leads to a disaster.
Well, let's hope we don't go that far. But you're going to Mexico
I
next
am.
week.
I'm going to one of the most lovely cities in Mexico, Guanajuato, which is to walk through the streets of it's a university town at some level. I'm going there to talk about developing a tourism security strategy for the city. But just to be in Guanajuato is to feel like you are in the romantic 17th century of medieval Spain, or just post-medieval Spain. And the city is filled with beautiful buildings, with people in often in costume, great restaurants. It's just a lovely city to be in. And if hopefully I can add to the city's charm by making sure that people can be there and be safe and secure. So working to make Guanajuato as safe as it is beautiful. And if we can do that, that's a big accomplishment. And I think Mexico especially stands on the verge of greatness because so many Americans this year may not want to go abroad. They may not want to go to Europe because it's very expensive. It's difficult. And, you know, you go to Mexico, it's an hour and a half from Houston or Los Angeles or Phoenix, and you're in a completely different world. And you feel like you're in a different century, a different language, a different culture. It's truly a visit to another world an hour and a half away.
Now, how are the prices in Mexico? Food
Mexico is much less expensive than Europe or the United States. It doesn't mean you cannot spend money there. Of course you can. There are expensive places every place in the world, but you can have really a reasonable meal, a nice hotel, a taxi ride with people with smiles for probably about half the cost of a Hawaiian vacation. So prices are really, they're quite good. It's 20 pesos to the dollar. And that means that the exchange rate is very favorable for Americans. And most Mexicans really receive Americans or Europeans with open arms. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have some security issues, because they do. But in a place like Guanajuato, those problems have tended to be between criminal gangs, and they're pretty good about leaving the tourists out of it. So if we can, you know, make sure that visitors are safe, that's a big advantage to Mexico. Mexico is everything.
And absolutely. And there's a lot of potential in Mexico, despite the security situation. What many say, it's not stable yet, but people like you can hopefully make a difference.
Yeah,
I understand
hopefully.
the process in expanding the tourism police also, right? How important is it to have a tourism police?
Without Mexico desperately needs a well-trained, it's not just having a tourism police, it has to be well-trained and understand what they're doing. And they need to be multilingual and well-paid. But if Mexico can develop a national tourism police, they probably call it the Guardia Civil or Guardia Nacional, but the name is really unimportant. What's important is that Mexico shows the world that it cares. And part of a tourism police, of course, is keeping crime down and safety up. But part of it, the difference is that tourism police does not want to solve a crime. It wants to keep crimes from happening. So they're really more on the risk management side than the crisis management side. And in tourism, the last thing you want is negative publicity. So what you want people to do is come, have a great time, spend their money, leave, and say nothing goes on here. You know, the police are almost not needed. And that means when you can say that about a place, it means the police are doing a very good job. So part of it is having people feel safe, walking home at night, you know, by themselves, and not worrying about anybody going to attack them.
Peter, What do you think is more important, to show police with uniforms in tourism centers, or to have police working in the background without being able to be identified?
Tourists prefer the former. Every time we do surveys, people in the tourism industry think that tourists are afraid of seeing police walking around in uniform. But when you actually interview tourists, if you have well-trained police, and that's the operative word there is if you have well-trained police, then people like seeing tourism police. They feel more secure, they spend more money, they report they have a better time and a higher likelihood of returning to the location. When police are in the background, people don't know where they are or who they are, and they tend not to open their pocketbooks. That's especially true of Asian visitors. And one of the problems I think Hawaii has had, it has not had enough visible tourism police. It does have police, but they're not marked specifically as tourism police. We tried to fix that in the 1990s with the Aloha Patrol, and that was a success when it was going. I don't know if it still exists or not, but especially among Asian visitors, they really like seeing uniformed people who are well trained. Now, you don't have to walk around with a submachine gun and a tank, and I'm not trying to say that, but having someone smile, armed, and say, you know, I'm here to make you feel comfortable. Is there anything I can do for you? And show an aloha spirit is really a good way to make money.
Yeah, and Peter, a major part of the travel and tourism industry, of course, is the meeting and incentive and convention industry that has suffered under COVID tremendously.
Yes.
Now, the second time and that this type of our industry, we call it MICE, is showing up and is coming out there and is telling the world we're here and we're ready for business. The first time was in Las Vegas last year with IMEX America, and the second time now is with the IMEX in Frankfurt, what is the original trade show, starting tomorrow. And everyone is quite excited. Ray Bloom, who started IMEX more than, I think, 25 years ago, has really built this show as the probably the most important event for the meeting and incentive industry. And convention centers are built everywhere in the world. They have been empty for 2 years now because of COVID in most parts, and the industry is now coming back. And I understand IMEX Frankfurt has a record number of exhibitors, the largest number of exhibitors since any trade show in COVID in this industry, and everyone is excited. How do you see the future of the meeting and incentive industry?
That's going to be really interesting because there are really two issues. One is how safe will it be to have large groupings? And secondly, are we done with COVID or are we going to have new pandemics? And if we have another pandemic of some form, it doesn't necessarily have to be COVID. It could be, you know, anything. They can come up with a new name. But if we have another shutdown pandemic, that's really going to put a nail in the coffin, I think, on MICE. On the other hand, people right now really do want to get out. They want to see each other. People want to travel. They're tired of being cooped up in quarantines. And I think it's going to be a very different type of world as far as how we're able to do things. So I'm hoping that those industries are going to do really well. I think it's good that they're having it in Frankfurt because Frankfurt has a wonderful airport. And part of travel is the ability to get to someplace easily. And one of the big advantages of the city of Frankfurt is that there are a lot of planes that come in and out. It's easy to get there. It's a hub.
And we at Air Tourbillonneurs are very proud. We've been a partner with IMEX ever since they started. And Fraport, that is the organization that runs Frankfurt Airport, also has been a good partner with Air Tourbillonneurs for many years now. And for those that don't know, Fraport is not only Frankfurt Airport. There are dozens of airports around the world that are run and operated by Fraport. So it's a huge organization behind it. It's operated from Frankfurt, Germany, same as the Star Alliance headquarters. And yes, Frankfurt is kind of the center of Europe besides London. I think that's where the competition is in Europe when it comes to major airports. It's Frankfurt, London, and Munich. These are the three big gateways in
Yeah.
Europe.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good. One of the things we maybe Frankfurt can work on is I got some calls today from Africa, and people were talking about how really awful the airports are in Africa and how uncomfortable they are. And one of the things I think to re-incentivize travel is not only to get better air service, but better terminal service. When you get on the plane, when you get off the plane, one of the things always impresses me in a negative way is when you land in many places to get from the plane to immigration, it sometimes feels like it's a 2-mile walk and you're schlepping bags and you're trying to get from one place to the other. And I'm thinking, why do they build the landing places so far from where people need to go to make a transfer or to go through immigration and customs? You're exhausted by the time you're done. And
one of the best airports I always thought, unfortunately, it's no longer in business, was Berlin Tegel Airport, where every gate you get out of the plane, immigration is right there. If you need to go through immigration, it's right in front of your gate. Then your baggage claim is right the minute you get outside the door from the gate from your aircraft. That's where the baggage claim is. So this was so convenient. And then you go outside, you're in the terminal, you can either go outside, catch a cab everywhere, or if you need to change, yes, you have to walk a little bit to find your next gate. But I thought it was an ideal setup. So I don't know why airports are not continuing this type of setups. I'm surprised.
I don't know, but I know that when almost every place in the world, it seems that whenever you land, you are a mile to 2 miles from where immigration is. Some places like Miami Airport, literally you can get your 10,000 steps in just by landing on the plane and getting to immigration. And that's really unfortunate because you have people who have travel problems, they have walking problems, they're tired, they've been on a long trip. And now we say, welcome to wherever you're coming to. Let us make your life as miserable as possible and let us show you how much we really dislike you. And that does not seem to be a really good travel strategy. So I really would encourage architects and airport authorities to do a little bit of thinking about how can we make it a little more passenger friendly and not these long terminals that are cold. Many of them don't have a place to sit down, and many of them don't have a place to go to the bathroom. You got to, in a number of places, you got to get through customs and through immigration before you can get to the bathroom.
Yeah, and that definitely is something I definitely wouldn't want if you have to stand in line an hour for immigration and you cannot find a bathroom. I understand this could be a real disaster.
Yeah.
So Peter, what else is going on in the world?
Well, I think that it's been an interesting set of worlds. Of course, there've been some unfortunate air problems in Nepal, and we are heartfelt to those people who
everyone died.
Yes.
And that unfortunately can happens in Nepal more than
frequently.
Most people like. It's one of the most difficult airports to fly into, Kathmandu Airport. Even more difficult is Bhutan. Bhutan, you actually need a special license to fly in. That's why only Druk Air, the local carrier or domestic carrier in Bhutan, has been flying in and out of the country. There's now one exception, I think it's India, that now got a license to fly in there. So it's quite difficult because you have the tallest mountains in the world. You have really strange weather conditions that can change from 1 minute to another. And yes, going on a domestic flight in Nepal is definitely not an easy task for any client, no matter how experienced you are.
And then maybe to end one, and not, you don't want to be on a negative note, but something I think we do have to think about in the tourism industry, and that is more and more, it looks like within the next 8 to 10 weeks, we may be facing, and I want to emphasize that the may and not a will, some beginnings of real food shortages. And that means two things. Not only will it be harder for restaurants to obtain food, but also people are going to be really resentful when food is wasted. And we need to be really thinking through, how do we provide decent luxury meals, because people are paying top dollar, but also we don't want to be a Marie Antoinette let him eat cake, qu'il mange le gâteau. We want to be sensitive to the fact that right now there may be more and more hunger in the world. And can we share food? Can we maintain food sizes? Can leftover food be somehow used again? I know in Texas, if food that's left over in restaurants, not served on somebody's plate, but food is in the kitchen, cannot be given to food banks. And that's in many places around the world. So that's going to be a real issue. How do we not waste food in a time of food shortages, especially with the war going on in Ukraine and Russia, and we're looking more and more at major food shortages.
And some of the hotel groups really pointing out, Marriott they've been doing this for years, giving food to those that need food in wherever they operate. And that's a good thing, because I mean, you don't want to have food go to waste.
No.
People are hungry and need it.
And I think we're going to see more and more hungry people. And the other side of that is that restaurants are going to have to raise their prices considerably in order to obtain food. And that means that their clientele are going to start complaining because you can only pay so much. My wife used to go to a Japanese restaurant for lunch, and it was teriyaki steak. I think it was $14. Now it's no longer served at lunch. You can only get a dinner, and it's $23 or $24. So it's gone up.
Very cheap.
Yeah, well, that's because we live in Texas, you live in Hawaii. But the bottom line is, if you look comparison,
ravioli for $24 here, if you're lucky.
Well, that's because all Hawaiians are wealthy. The bottom line is, when you see food going up, last year I paid for 10 ears of corn $1. Right now for Memorial Day, they had a big sale, 6 for $1, and it's usually 1 for $1. It's gone up, from tenfold the cost of an ear of corn. Now, if you're just one person or two people, it's not the end of the world. But if you're a family and you're living on, the average income's $45,000, $50,000 a year, that's really hard.
No, absolutely, Peter. Well, today is the day, so I can only say from our part of the world, happy Memorial Day. And we're going to see each other again probably in a couple of days, and we'll talk.
I'll try to report from Guanajuato. And from here, Texas is a military state, and we take the time to remember our veterans and the fact that they, and all the members of our armed forces, and how much they sacrifice for our freedom. So at least in Texas, you see flags flying every place, and people are really appreciative of everything the military has done for us here. So on that, I wish everyone not only a happy Memorial Day, but a meaningful Memorial Day. Take the time to give an extra prayer, or take the time to think about what people do to sacrifice so that we can all be free.
And if you want to watch this broadcast again, just stay tuned for another 2 hours, and we're going to repeat it for 24 hours. And then you can always watch us on breakingnews.com, or go to our YouTube channel, where it's linked from all our websites. Peter, it was a pleasure talking to you. Texas, and aloha from Hawaii.
Enjoy Hawaii.
We see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.